and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I want to talk about input and output in the C programming language. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Alright, so in this video, I want to touch up on three important things in C: input, output, and dive into what include is. And I know we've used it in the past. I sort of have it in every video so far, but I think that's a good point to start. So what is this hashtag include followed by these little signs, less than, greater than signs? All right, so that's just syntax, right? We really only care about this. It's stdio. So std stands for standard, io stands for input and output, and then .h is just the extension of our file. Inside of this file, we are given many useful things. We're given this function printf, and there's many other stuff. For reference, I'm going to pull up this to the side just so we can see. So C library, and it's a standard input io.h, and there's library variables, library macros, and there's library functions. And just for proof of concept, I'm going to look up printf, and here it is. It returns an int. Oh wait, no, this one. It returns int, printf, const char, format, all that fun stuff. Sends formatted output to standard out. Okay, and there's many functions, as you can see here, and we're going to be utilizing some of these functions to get some programming done. So with that out the way, now that you kind of have this idea, right, we have our main. Main is our main function. Inside of main, this is what's going to get executed, and we're using support file, and we're using a support function. So we're going to recap quickly on output. And I know I mentioned this, I kind of went over it about formatting in one of the previous videos, but just for simplicity, let's kind of go through this pretty quickly. So example 1, display text to console. So in this example, all I want to do is print to the console, in our case the terminal, hello everyone, followed by print a new line just for formatting, just so we don't get mixed up. So let's do this once again. We do gcc, and my file right now, for simplicity, I just put input output.c. We're gonna go run this, and we don't have any compile errors, so that means we're good to go to run a.out. And following this command, I'm going to be using the exclamation mark to compile and to execute our code. And just so you know what that means, I'm going to basically be doing exclamation mark followed by a letter, and that is going to invoke the last command starting with that letter, just so everyone's on the same page as to why I'm using the exclamation mark. So as you can see, we were able to print hello everyone out onto the console, and our new line, all it did was so that this part wasn't wrapped over here. So let's move on to example 2. Example 2, display number inside variables to console. So let's go ahead and break this down line by line. So here we're going to declare a variable that's of type int, integer. We're going to set this value equal to 123. Now, what do we want to do with this number? We want to print this number to the console so that everyone else knows. If you're not looking at the code, just so everyone knows that this is my lucky number, right? Not really, but just for simplicity. And then we want to print a new line just for formatting. And remember, we can also do this over here, and it'll do the same thing. But I just kind of want to make it explicit in what I'm doing. So let's go ahead and save the file, and let's do what gcc, no errors, great, a.out, and this is what we get. So we get our previous hello everyone. And then we get this is my lucky number 123. And now, one thing I have not mentioned in the past is when you're thinking of the main function, think of it as we're going top to bottom, right? So first we hit this. Whenever the computer's reading our code, it's going to do this first. It's not jumping around. It's not going to start from the bottom all the way to the top. And for right now, we have our main function, and it's doing printf. Then it's going to print new line, then it's going to go down here, it's going to declare and define a variable, then we're going to print this variable in a new line, so on and so forth. So breaking this line here, if you recall, we just do our regular quotation marks followed by some text and then followed by our formatter, right? In our case, as we recall from a previous video, a %d will allow us to print an integer. And that is what we're seeing over here. So example 3, very similar to the previous example, but we want to do a little bit more formatting for say, and we can also demonstrate that with the use of floats and decimals. So let's go ahead and kind of comment these out. So here we're going to declare a variable, some floating point, and we're going to make this hold the data type float, right? And here we represent 10.123456. Now, why don't we just print this float just so we can see what's going on. So let's do command G dot a dot out, and here we have the full float that we were able to print. So now let's do float formatting, and here we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to printf my floating point number, but we're only going to restrict it past 2 decimal points, and we'll see that over here. But let's go ahead and clear this output, gcc.a.out, and there we go, how we previously printed the full floating point number, and now we're restricted by 10.2. Okay, all right, so now let's do a character. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to declare and define first letter. Okay, we're just going to set this to A. It's a character, right? So we're going to print and then do our formatting. So again, similar format, we do follow a string of characters, so the first letter of my name, and then followed by this formatter. We want to print out a character, so we're going to do %c and then the letter. So let's do this really quickly, and we get the first letter of my name is A, and actually that is incorrect. It's actually J. So how do we get input from other users? And I know you might think this is very simple, how is this actually used in practice? And being honest with you, don't worry about that right now. The goal of this is to get you in a mindset of how to code, getting you familiar with what's an integer, float, character, kind of these concepts. So I know it might seem pointless, but trust me, it'll start getting much more interesting. So how about input? We can use as I mentioned, the standard input output header file, and we're going to be using something called scanf. So how do we use scanf? And I'm actually going to go down here, put a couple of line breaks so you can see better. So first, let's declare a variable, and we're going to call this my input number. Notice how we are not assigning any number to it. Okay, we're just declaring it. We're declaring this variable is of type int, but it holds nothing. And in actual memory, it's going to hold what I usually call it is garbage or trash. It's just going to be a bunch of weird numbers, right? Because we didn't explicitly declare a value in this variable. So for right now, just think of it as there's nothing in there. But just know that there technically is something in there. But it's not useful to us because we just declared it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a printf. And now don't get confused. This is not the portion that is going to take input from the user. And just for proof of concept, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to compile this. And as you can see, we have an error. I'm going to go ahead and now compile this. And there we get a good GCC. And then we're going to run out a.out. Notice how the program terminated. It executed. It went from top to bottom, right? It didn't allow me to get input, and that's the point I'm trying to make. All this is doing is just printing this stream of characters onto the screen. It's not actually trying to get input. We're going to use scanf. Scanf is going to give us the ability to scan for input. So I'm going to go over here back to the back to this website, and as you can see right here, int scanf, and it reads formatted input from standard input, right? So that's what it's doing. And now let's break this down. Our type is an integer, so we want to scan for type integer, and we want to put it into my input number. This ampersand is saying that we want to put it into the address of my input number. Okay, that'll make much more sense, but just for right now, just for formatting parts and how the however the function wants it in, you need to have this ampersand. And I guess I'll show you again right here. It's kind of saying it wants a char pointer. The little star is a pointer, but like I said, we'll get into all that much later. So let's go ahead and save this. And now at this point, we're going to take whatever input we put and we're going to put it into an integer. So previously we had nothing, so now we should have something. And let's go ahead and save that. Do Command G. Oh, my bad. Let's do a GCC out. Then let's clear this. And now notice how the program did not finish executing. Okay, it's not finished executing. So why don't we put in a number? Let's put 159 and then hit enter. What does this read? It says my input was 159, right? That's exactly what we told it to. We had not previously put anything in there, and now notice we can overwrite this number. We can say 10. We can go over here, clear this out, GCC a.out, and now let's overwrite this to be a negative 9999. There we go. There we go. We have now the ability to overwrite these numbers based off user input. So at this point, I want you to start thinking, okay, all right, this is starting to make more sense, I hope. But in essence, this is pretty much, in a nutshell, input and output. If we want to go more in depth and more details, which we are going to do so later, at least for input, we're going to talk about how to get information from files, right? Because you might be wondering, okay, this is going to be very hard if the only way we can get input is through user text, right? But we'll save that for another video, and I hope you learned something new, and I hope you understood, hopefully, and I hope you find this video helpful. Again, once more, if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below, and I'll be sure to get back to them as soon as I can. So thank you, and until next time, see ya.